And that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, in any circumstance, if a team of any sort starts to underperform, I suppose it is the manager who gets the push, gets the boot. But yeah, the manager I hated. Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to take over, and as soon as he took over, well, one of the lads one at Fitters came into the stores and said, "Who's that down and out?" I said, "Oh, it's new stores manager." I was completely unsuspecting because, I was very young and naive, and he used to go ballistic with me because he daren't tackle the other blokes. I was the youngest and smallest as usual. Yeah, and it was obvious he couldn't do his job. He was useless. I mean, he was cloudy mind and everything. I used to rod the fuel tanks every Monday morning, my first job, and I'd go to him and tell him how much out the gallonages in the petrol, diesel, and gas oil tank. And I stood next to him while he was adding it up. I don't know why I did, but he was on a calculator and I stood there thinking, "You've made a mistake there. You've made a mistake there," and I could have done that without a calculator and been doing it down site faster. So it was obvious he was going to get the boot. There was no need to take it out on me, was there? Because I was the only one who was capable, who he could do it to. I hated him. He was horrible. He was a nasty, horrible, vicious bully, and I'd already been bullied, which he probably did know. I should have sensed, but I hadn't had a chance with him. Yeah, I mean, Dad used to say when footballers were starting to underperform, he said, "Oh, the blimp manager. It's never the prima donna overpaid star who doesn't do much anyway." I mean, they used to say when I worked on rally cars, our football players, all they need is a perm. Have their hair curled. I never thought for a minute they wanted me as a football player, and I wasn't interested. I was interested in engineering and cars, and I liked tuning cars when I was younger, but, well, you get to a point where it just gets boring. Fast cars and that, whatever. I mean, I had a race-tuned Austin Mini. I built it, I tuned it, I could drive it. Most of my lecturers couldn't tune it. They wouldn't know where to start because most of the things you measure aren't constant, so you can't tune it by them. How did I tune it? We're supposed to do it on a rolling road or on a dynamometer, on a test bed and set it all up properly. Well, I tuned it by, I knew if you backed the ignition timing off until it didn't pink at any throttle opening or revs, it would be okay because it's not going to melt the piston. You can melt the piston doing that, apparently. And the mixture, well, tune it until it performs best. And I didn't have a stopwatch or anything, couldn't afford stuff like that. I tuned it until I felt it wasn't pinking. And I just guessed that the mixture was right if it was going fastest. Because usually, well, the camshaft I did, it wouldn't be economical anyway. But yeah, usually you tune them for peak performance. And if it's a reasonable setup for road use, the peak performance will be the most efficient. Usually use the least petrol if you don't drive it hard, because peak performance is producing more power, so it's going to be more efficient. But there are certain variables like the valve timing. If you go too far with one of them, the performance will keep increasing. The power band will go up and up and up, so it revs faster and faster, but it'll use more petrol and won't be anywhere near as economical. But like I said, mine had I think it was a 731 equivalent, and it was a Piper Magnum 2. Terrible camshaft, yeah. Asymmetric camshaft designed to increase torque and reduce lumpiness of the tick over idle, lumpiness at idle, and the engine speed varied at idle because of the lead lag and overlap. And the air went backwards and forwards because of the timing of the valves. So you get petrol and air ejected out the carburetors as they were then. Didn't have injection then, apart from on 2.8i Sierras and Capris. But yeah, I mean, you'd get petrol ejected from the carburetors, and if you put a split Weber on, it was an expensive waste of time because you have to cut a quarter of a barrel off one of the Webers to get it to fit in to match it to the parts, so you could have straight inlet manifolds. You'd have to build a box in the bulkhead. You have to cut a piece out of the bulkhead and build a box to contain them. But they said the box was okay for mopping standoff off. That's what the term's called when the petrol's ejected from the carburetors. It's called a standoff because it goes onto the box. Very nice to use SUs. Mine would have taken 1 3/4. I only had 1.5 on. SUs are very cheap, different operating method and theory, and they worked in a different way. Constant depression carburetors, when you floor the throttle, the variable venturi, aren't they? Venturi, is it? The suction from the inlet manifold is transferred through the piston, through holes in the piston, to the dashpot. That's like a container for the piston, so it causes vacuum above the piston, causes the piston to rise until it's equal above the piston and in the carburetor throat, or venturi, whatever it's called, or barrel, bar, whatever. And in that time, as the piston rises, it's an aluminium piston, so it won't be that heavy, but it has a damper on, like a shock absorber. It's an oil damper. There's a piston in a rod with oil in, just to slow it down because it can go too fast. But obviously, the moment you floor the throttle, the damper, and there's a spring as well, the piston doesn't start to rise immediately. So there's an awful lot of vacuum around the base of the piston, where there's a needle goes into the jet where the petrol comes out. You alter the mixture by varying the size of the needle and jet, because the needle's tapered, so the further the piston lifts, the more petrol comes out, because you want more petrol at higher speed in vacuum. But the instant you floor the throttle, there's lag in the piston rising, which causes more vacuum around the jet, which is the hole that the petrol comes out of, causing a natural accelerator pump. It doesn't pump the petrol, it draws it out. Weber's very complicated, loads of jets, very complicated accelerator, a very complicated throttle linkage, and it's incorporated a manual accelerator pump. When you press the throttle hard, it had to sense it was being pressed hard. So I don't know, it did it. And that there was a linkage to operate a diaphragm to pump the petrol. Diaphragm, rubber piston. Well, it's like a piston. It's sealed in. It seals with the rubber, but rubber fails after so long, it'll burst. Not reliable either. The SUs, if you left them in a scrapyard for years, they'd seize up. What do? You take them apart by force, clean them up with a piece of wire wool and polish them up a bit. Yeah, it'll alter the vacuum and the speed of the piston rising. Well, you jet it up accordingly, don't you? So it's not going to be a problem. They're okay like that. You don't have to scrap them. How much was a pair of Webers? A pair of Webers, they're about with 300 each, I think, so about 600 quid for a pair of Webers. I got a pair of 1.5 SUs from a scrapyard, second hand. I went and I said, "Have you got any Tram 1500 carburetors?" He said, "Yeah, some here off the shelf, the Caesar." I said, "That'd be right. 5 quid for a pair." And I just cleaned them up. Damn sight cheaper than Webers. I won't have Webers. Far too complex. They're just needlessly complicated. And that's what they said at college. Now you wait to fit them. Because obviously you could put a shorter manifold on with an SU. The shorter the inlet tract, short inlet manifold. Webers, about that. Webers, I can't show you that. Well, they'd be about, I would think, about between a foot and 18 inch long. An SU, about that long. So you've got a shorter carburetor, shorter inlet manifold. The shorter the inlet tract, the better the throttle response, because there's less air to accelerate in the engine, so it has less inertia, so it goes in faster. The flow starts faster, so the car responds more quickly to the throttle. And when I let my brother drive my Mini on an old disused airfield, he said, "I can't believe this car." And he says, "It doesn't matter how fast you press the throttle, the car responds at the same speed." He says, "With most cars, you floor the throttle, the car begins to build up speed slowly, but this one, it's as fast as you press the throttle." Now, he'd never driven anything like it, but it would match a Cosworth Sierra or a Porsche 911 non-turbo to 60. And they were 3.2 litre, weren't they? An SC. My boss had one. Well, I got on my boss's Porsche. I got into my Mini 1275 GT. Thought this Mini 1275 GT, it's like an old bike. Then I got out my Mini on my old bike, and I thought, this old bike, old push bike, yeah, a bit like an old bike. Anyway, I thought I'd have to do something with that Mini. It's a bit slow. 1275 GTs were a notorious disappointment. Cooper S's weren't bad, but man, my Mini in the end had twice the performance of a Cooper S, twice the power output, twice the acceleration. I mean, my brother used to say, Mini 1275 GTs, disappointment. I put a copper exhaust pipe on my Mini. I used to drive it under bridges because it sounded like a Cooper S. Thought, well, whatever, you don't believe my Mini will accelerate, do 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. Oh, you're super supreme. Flipping what is it? E36 M3R complete racing car. Yeah, but how much does it cost? £1,000. Apparently they were 14 grand. He never told me that. Yeah, but they're about 60 new, what was it, 48? Awful lot of money wasted on them, wasn't there? I mean, I don't know what it would compare like to 0 to 60, but yeah, it was incredibly fast, 370 brake horsepower, but were they governed to 150? And where can you do 150 on the English road system? You can't. The fastest you can do is 70. And I don't know if does he race it? Well, I'm not aware he does. Where does he get the money for that? I mean, he was only ever a plater. That's what people say. Anybody can be a plater, but Boilermaker like me, Grandad's granddad, that was a skilled job. I don't know. So you mean it's like I suspect he wasn't even my half brother? No, I saw somebody who looked like him in town. I thought, no, he ain't my half brother. Well, he won't be a Wetherell anyway, and that's my grandmother's maiden name. I mean, I probably do look 57, but my dad, he looked 70 when he was 93. But I know people who probably look older than me and they are younger than me. And I saw somebody in town yesterday. I thought, she said, yeah, it's not worth it. I thought, what work? Or, well, look at damn sight, I look younger than you, love, and I'm not obese. You know, I'm almost morbidly obese, and you don't look very well at all. And I bet she was younger than me. I mean, it's obviously the celebrities though, when you're walking around town, they're overweight, they look very old and haggard, and well, if that's good for them, well, fair enough, but I won't want to look like that, and it can't be healthy.